Manchester United midfield shakeup is on the cards, with apparently Mainoo and Ugarte and some others have been told that they are allowed to go and leave Manchester United. We're going to get into the news. Semenyo deal seems to be off the cards for at least now, and Marcus Rashford's deal to Barcelona seems in jeopardy. So a lot of big transfer updates coming to us today. We're going to get into it. We're going to break it down. We're going to have a nice, big, great discussion, heavily opinionated discussion as well. Please make sure you smash the like button. Get that done, people. It is important to the channel. If you enjoy the content, make sure you subscribe. And if you do subscribe, hit the notification bell icon so you don't miss a live and you get notified when we go live. But let's kick off with the news, because there is some big updates and there's a lot more, some more question marks coming out over these players' futures. Let's start off with this. Manchester United, this is coming from Mark Ogden earlier into today, saying Manchester United will listen to offers for Kobbie Mainoo, Joshua Zirkzee, Manuel Ugarte, and Tyrell Malacia in January. However, allowing any to leave before the end of AFCON on January 18th would leave Ruben Amorim desperately short on players. Well, I mean, some people might say this might have been on the cards, specifically for Kobbie Mainoo, in terms of that, you know, he hasn't really been in favor of Ruben Amorim. He hasn't had a lot of game time as he was once upon a time getting before Ruben Amorim came to this football club. And we're going to talk about that. Joshua Zirkzee obviously has been one that has been mentioned side by side with Kobbie Mainoo in terms of with the loan out. It's a bit still unclarified in what they mean by allowing them and to leave and listening to offers. Are the offers for Kobbie and Zirkzee permanent? Are they going to be loans? There's a bit of a discrepancy there. Some people are going to lean towards Kobbie's probably going to be sold and maybe Zirkzee as well, but there is definitely this definitely is a bit of a change, because obviously United have had the sort of stance that they would not allow either Zirkzee or Kobbie Mainoo to go on loan at the very least, and not even a full transfer, but to go on loan. And this sort of has changed. Now, Manuel Ugarte is another one that he is clearly way more out of favor than I would say Kobbie Mainoo at this current moment in time. Obviously, being Ruben Amorim's former player at Sporting, and he is getting way less game time than Kobbie is getting. And there was a story or two, that they were looking to sort of loan him / maybe sell him in the summer window, but nothing really materialized out of it, and he stayed here. I do think he is very likely to go. We've talked about this in the past of how, Omar sort of had this stance of you get 2 seasons to perform or show that there's something about you. If you don't have it, then they would look to sort of move you on. We haven't really sort of gotten that yet in terms of players that they've brung in. And then, would look to sort of necessarily move on if they didn't feel like their development or they really fit the club. I think we're reaching that point because obviously they signed Ugarte, and they also signed Joshua Zirkzee. So, I think now is probably the time we're going to see, if they're going to hold true to that, if Omar and the club are going to hold true to that sort of 2-year stance to prove your worth or get you out the door. And there are more updates going into this and leading into this as well. So, following that up, obviously, with Manuel Ugarte, Manuel Ugarte's future at Manchester United is looking increasingly bleak. The planned midfield overhaul means Ugarte being allowed to move on. That is coming from Alex Crook. I think, listen, in some sort of stance, something's got to budge and things are going to happen. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I've always sort of felt that, with Manuel Ugarte, he seems, in my opinion, it would be the most logical and the most sensible to move him on, because he doesn't seem like he's doing well. He's not getting picked. He didn't have, an amazing first season, but first seasons you could always struggle, but obviously you always have to step it up the second season, and he's not even, he's getting less game time now than he was last season, so clearly this season isn't going well for him. And you combine that with the stories of United are looking at targets for the midfield, Baleba, Anderson, Wharton and Stiller and others. And some of the reports obviously has been that we want to get two. And to get two in, you might argue, where is the future in some of these players? There's still some question marks over Casemiro in terms of what United are going to do with him. Ruben does like him, but the club wants him on a reduced wages, so we don't know if he's going to be able to stay. It is kind of a conundrum right now because there is a lot of uncertainty around the midfield right now in terms of what's going to happen. Because, for all we know, Cass can leave, Ugarte can leave, and Mainoo can leave permanently. We bring two in the summer and maybe one in January right now. There's been some updates around January in terms of, what we're going to be able to do in the midfield. There's been sort of a little bit of a, it's a bit of a not controversial, but it's contradicting because they are sort of trying to apparently look to bring somebody in, but they're also trying to tote the line of they probably won't be able to spend a massive amount of money, and that massive amount of money will be spent in the summer. So, to go into these, obviously Manchester United are willing to break their club transfer record to sign one of Carlos Baleba, Adam Wharton, or Elliot Anderson next summer, and that's also coming from Alex Crook. And the other update that goes into this is, I don't even have it here. There's another update that goes sort of hand in hand with this, and that is that one has to do with Angelo Stiller, but one has to do more so with just in general with the club. And that is that from Laurie Whitwell, he said Manchester United might look to make a signing in January, but the expectation is that any such deal would be seizing a low-cost opportunity rather than attempting any long-term signing. However, talks will take place in case circumstances change. So the club seems like they would clearly, obviously, like to bring in a long-term signing, which would be Baleba, Wharton, or Anderson, and maybe even Stiller. But these deals don't seem too likely. Now, we did also get the update that it appears João Gomez, who seemed to be one of these two players that could be available in January, seems to be off of the table as well now, and that we are not going to be in for him, and we are not going to go for him. One of the other updates we also received is that if the Manchester United hierarchy, and this is coming from Mark Ogden, if the Manchester United hierarchy can unlock some funds, the club could make a move for one of their key midfield targets, which is Elliot Anderson, Wharton, Baleba, and Stiller in January. Only Stiller seems to be likely and affordable next month. So, again, there is a bit of a mixture going on here in the midfield sort of, conundrum. I will say this, though, on Kobbie Mainoo, and, we've had somebody comment in the chat and said, makes no sense from a Wilcox Ineos perspective to get rid of a 20-year-old top prospect, and obviously he's talking about Kobbie Mainoo there. And I sort of agree in this sense. Now, they didn't directly tell us that Kobbie Mainoo is going to be permanently sold, but with the update that we have received, and obviously it is a change in stance and it is a change in what Manchester United have sort of been holding true, is that they weren't in the business of letting these players go because Ruben Amorim doesn't want to be short, and we do have to let our three players go to AFCON by December 15th. So from December 15th to maybe probably about a month, you would say up to January 15th, something like that, we will not have Mbeumo Diallo or Mazawari. And this is probably why, Ruben has kept some of these players here and not maybe let them go, in the summer and started off the season without them here. But on Kobbie Mainoo, I mean, listen, I think we have to see and wait what happens. To me, I've always said that I still do believe that, and I find it kind of hard to believe that you would let a player like him go at his age. For me, from a club standpoint, in terms of Manchester United, it doesn't really make sense. He's a 20-year-old top prospect, like United Keys said. For the Ineos project, it doesn't make sense. And I know he's out of favor right now. I know, he's not Ruben's, top pick, and he's not playing a whole lot. But I still don't really understand how or why you would let a 20-year-old leave this football club at this age without even trying to continue to develop and further. And regardless of the manager, we've had this situation before where we've talked about it. There are 3 people involved in a transfer. It is the manager, the player, and then obviously the club. Well, there's really 4, because then it's also the other club that's interested in buying them. And for me, even if Ruben doesn't really rate Kobbie, I would be surprised that Jason Wilcox, somebody that has a history of getting youth in and talent and growing them and nurturing them, and developing them, would sort of agree to sanction a deal permanently for Kobbie Mainoo and let him leave this football club. And it also doesn't make sense in terms of, Ineos' sort of thing, because we are targeting and we are acquiring young players, and we're getting players. We've gotten players in and around his age, and we're getting players that are younger than him, and it doesn't really make sense to me in that regard. So I don't really know. I still don't buy 100%. Listen, I'm not under the illusion that it can't happen. For me, it doesn't feel right in terms of United, in terms of these other things going on, other than the manager. But it's still, I think, at 20 years old, you still have the opportunity to have an actual career at Manchester United. You might not be in favor right now, but you are a young player, and that doesn't mean that will stay like that forever. Now, the opposite side, the flip side of that is, if United are looking to completely overhaul the midfield and sort of, blow it up and come in with a new thing, and you're talking about the potential of getting 2 top midfield players, which would be Baleba Wharton, Anderson, and then maybe potentially somebody else like a Stiller or something like that on the cards, you kind of start to think, well, if he does have a chance and he does have an opportunity, and I'm talking about Kobbie Mainoo having some sort of future here, you're bringing in 2 top midfielders that are obviously going to go straight into, the starting lineup, which means that Kobbie would remain a sub, or Kobbie would remain a partial player or a bit time player. And if that's the case, how does he, where is the pathway for him to actually, if he does grow and develop in terms of training and that, where does he really sort of, have the path to be a starter, to be a leader in the midfield? It's a bit complicated, because I think you could see it both ways. I think, one, you could say he doesn't have a real chance, and that's probably why many people, or some people, feel like his career will be, is no more at this club, and that it will come to an end sooner rather than later. But also, I think you can say, well, if you look at the club in terms of, if we do get back into a European spot, if we do have more matches, there will be more rotation, there should be more opportunities. And I guess it depends what happens with the rest of the players as well. There's a lot that is going on in this midfield at the current time, and there's a lot of question marks, and there's a lot of, answers that we don't have, because we don't exactly know what the club is exactly going to do. If they let Cass go, it's going to be something different than if they keep Casemiro. If Cass goes, Ugarte goes, and then, what do we do with Bruno Fernandes? There's so many question marks in the midfield that it's so hard to look at the picture and see a clear image of exactly what they are trying to do in here, and who's going to actually stay and who's actually going to go, because I think many people would let Cass go. I would let Cass go as well. And I think to us that it's the most logical and it makes the most sense. They might keep him around. And I've said to keep Cass around on a 1-year deal at lower wages isn't the worst thing. But if you're bringing 1 to 2 new midfielders in, what is the plan for Bruno Fernandes? Is he going to continue to play there, or is it going to get shifted once you properly get the people that can actually play in this position? And, Ugarte seems like he's probably one that is the most likely to go, considering he's not doing well, but things can change. And I don't know if he goes necessarily in January, but maybe in the summer, unless somebody is in, to actually make a deal for him or purchase him. Lyle is here, says, hey, Eric and all you Reds. Lyle says, wait, are we talking about Mainoo leaving on loan or permanently? Well, that is sort of the problem and the issue. I mean, they have said that he is allowed to leave. And they said that in January specifically. Now, United's stance has always, and Kobbie's sort of stance, has been that Kobbie doesn't want to leave permanently. He's looking for a loan because he wants to play in the World Cup. And as far as we know, United don't seem to be, and Ruben, they don't seem to be interested in actually letting him go permanently. But this midfield sort of, this midfield sort of dilemma is there's so many question marks, and we don't actually know what they plan to do with the midfield. So, Elias says Mainoo going out on loan in Jan is a good move. That is the only thing I think that should happen. And I agree. I think at this current moment in time, I think what they should do, and I hope they're doing it, and I hope this is the direction that they're actually going in, is that clearly, he is still out of favor. We don't have enough matches to do proper rotation and give more opportunities to Kobbie to prove himself. And Ruben clearly obviously rates the midfield of Bruno and Casemiro. Now, he could be totally wrong about this. It might be the wrong move. He should be playing Kobbie Mainoo there instead of one of the two. But obviously, he's made his choice in that. So for Kobbie, personally Kobbie, and not looking at the club or the squad in those terms, for Kobbie, he should probably be definitely allowed to go on loan at this point in time, because it just doesn't seem like there's going to be any sort of way for him to actually, even if he does all the right things. Ruben just seems to prefer Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro. He seems to prefer this experience. He wants to go with this experience route. And that's what he's doing this season. And that's sort of, I think that's also in plans with Jason Wilcox, being the director of football and sort of working with Ruben. I think they've come up with this plan. So I think for Kobbie, the best thing is to go on loan so he can play. Now the tricky thing about this is they clearly are on a path where they are trying to, they're sort of trying to walk down the middle on this. And I don't know, when you try to walk down the middle, sometimes it doesn't really work out, and sometimes you really can't walk down the middle. But when I mean by the trying to walk down the middle on this is they are quite clearly concerned about that they have to give up the 3 players for AFCON. They quite clearly want to make sure we have enough depth, and just, in case of injuries or something, we have enough depth or backups or emergency options. They then, with this update here, because this was the update from Mark Ogden, they are willing to let or listen to offers. And if the offer is good enough, I guess they would be willing to let them go. Now, obviously, Xerxes and Mainoo have always been ones that are talked about loan. I think we need to kind of wait and see how this sort of develops, because I think paper talk wise, with Kobbie being out of form, there's been a lot of murmurings. People have a lot of opinions and think Kobbie won't continue to be here. potentially maybe Kobbie asked for a permanent deal later down the line, but that hasn't been the case. That's not what has been reported to us. What has been always reported to us, and it still stands this way, is that Kobbie Mainoo and Joshua Zirkzee, if they're not going to be given more game time than they have been receiving, they would like to go on loan so that they can try and get into their prospective World Cup squads. Tyrell Malacia is obviously somebody we tried to sell and obviously has no future at this club, so we would be looking to move him on one way or another and just get him out. And then obviously Manuel Ugarte is one that seems to be very out of favor. And there was always that story that, you know, we were sort of looking to move him on in the summer. There was a potential sort of loan deal. It didn't materialize, and he has stayed at the football club. But the big thing here is obviously the reason why they're trying to tote the line is because they won't necessarily allow any of these players to leave. Maybe Malacia doesn't matter, but in terms of Mainoo, Zirkzee, or Ugarte, they won't let them leave before the end of AFCON, which is January 18th, because they are concerned about leaving Ruben Amorim desperately short on players. So we are trying to tote the line here on this. DJ Darkest says, "Hi man, what's up? Have I missed much? LOL UK time." Look. Zirkzee and Mainoo to Napoli United on loan. We go from there. No, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think right now that's what we got to do. But again, we're trying to understand where the club is coming from, and clearly they are trying to walk down this sort of straight path in that they have, I guess, accepted that, you know what, we can probably let these guys go, and maybe this has been the plan all along. Maybe this is why they did not. You know, they probably knew that a couple of these guys were going to have next to nothing game time or not a lot of game time, and some of them were going to have to suffer. But it is Ruben's job to look out after the squad as a whole, and it's also the job of Jason Wilcox to do the same thing. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to make, you know, decisions or sacrifices that is for the betterment of the good of the whole, into the detriment of some of the few. You know, this happens in war and stuff like that, and other places we've seen in TV shows and stuff like that. But you understand the concept that on a personal level, does it suck for Kobbie Mainoo and Joshua Zirkzee and maybe even Manuel Ugarte that they clearly are you know, out of favor, and we don't have enough matches to properly rotate, and they're not going to have as much playing time as they would like? Yes. Is it better for the club to have these guys here from the beginning of the season to when AFCON ends? Because we don't know what would happen to our squad players in terms of, you seen Sesko is out. You saw Cunha got an injury and he's missed 2 matches. And luckily it wasn't more serious. And these are things that we can't control and that we can't foresee happening. So it is better to have more options and have an abundance of options for the team in general as a whole than to be short on options as the manager and then be in a situation where you are completely screwed because you don't have enough depth. And now we are, you know, on the short end of the stick. These updates is telling us basically that we have passed the period, or we will pass the period of AFCON. The players will come back, and then we will look to do moves. This is leaving us a bit short to do this, though, because, I mean, to do it around January 18th or so, obviously that is basically half of January, which leaves you about 2 weeks to do these deals. So time will be of the essence to do this. DJ says, bruv, JJ Gabriel, will he ever play him? I despair we let a lot of our talent go. Well, JJ Gabriel is still very young, and and actually on JJ Gabriel can't even actually play for us right now. He actually literally, according to the rules, he literally cannot play for us right now. He would be able to play after January, because I believe his birthday is in January or something like that. So JJ Gabriel right now, even if Ruben Amorim wanted to, which I don't think he does, because I think he's way too young, and I don't think that's ever going to happen at this moment in time. But even if he wanted to, he can't. He literally can't. He is not able to do so. JJ Gabriel literally cannot play for us right now. So, and JJ Gabriel is very young, and I don't expect him to come into the team for another 2 seasons or so. I don't really see the reason for it. He's doing well. Let him continue to develop. I don't see why we have to throw these kids into this situation as it stands right now. With what we have, we need to continue to build out a stronger concrete base in our first team. Get them to be playing at consistent levels, and then we can introduce young players who are always going to be inconsistent. We don't need, in my opinion, we don't need to add more inconsistency to the inconsistent squad that we already have. We have a lot of senior players that already struggle to handle the pressure and the expectations of the first team and performing in the Premier League. And I think if you throw in these young guys, I don't think it'll help. I think it'll probably make things worse in the long term over a longer period of time. Scored a hat-trick against Liverpool's away for the U18s. A la Rooney, but much skinnier. Well, there's also Rooney's son, so, he's down there as well. So we do have players and prospects down there. I think we need to be patient with them, though, which I don't think some of the fan base doesn't seem to have, unfortunately, but I think this is the proper process to go through with the youth players. I trust Jason Wilcox in this standpoint because he does have a history with this when he was in other positions at other clubs. He did quite well with these things in getting these young players and then getting them into the club and ultimately giving them a path into the first team and developing them properly. So yes, Kai, I forgot his name. Thank you. So I do trust him on this process. I think it's just one that will take I just think it's a longer term thing. I don't think it's a short term thing. I think fans are looking for short term fixes. I don't think the club are really looking at short term fixes. And this is why we sort of have this standoff between the fans and what the club is doing in terms of the direction that they're moving in. Because fans are anxious. Fans understand that we do need something now. We need more of a push. We need more of a help. But for me, that would come in the January transfer window. And actually, it's a bit contradictory because their viewing on this is the reason why they've gone with the experience, because they are telling us essentially this is what's going to get you the answers now. This is what's going to get you the results now. The youth and the plan we have for the youth, that will come later down the line. So they're not. So some fans are looking at youths as they could be quick fixes, but they're not viewing them in that sort of way. They're looking to the experienced players that they can use now to get results and performances. Bro, but can you see our point? We don't see our kids are coming through. But where do you want them to come through from if they're not of age and we have fixed the academy, or we're making changes to the academy and the academy is constantly evolving? And since Inyo has come in, the players that they have signed at the youth academy level, like, these guys are very young. And a lot of them are not ready. So I think the fan base has to be more patient because these players are still at the football club. We're not necessarily selling them. We've sold a couple, like Tahit Chong and, I forgot a couple of the other ones. But, what have they done when we've sold them? It's not like we've made massive mistakes on them. They clearly weren't good enough. They clearly weren't at the level. Look at the football clubs that they play at. The other ones that we have, we're sending them on loan, and they're doing well on loan. I think in due time, they will come through when they are ready. I don't think they're ready. And I don't think fans have the full picture, because fans can watch the matches at under 18s or under 21s all they want, but they are not coaches and they are not with them every day, and they do not experience them on the training pitch, and they do not call them up and watch them into the senior training level. We don't have access to that. We don't have this information. We don't get to watch them on a daily basis. So I think a lot of fans jump the gun on this. I believe in a longer term process for the youth. There's no need to rush them. There's a long path. And I think right now we need to focus on our first team. We need to sort and set consistency. We are not consistent as a first team. And youth players are highly inconsistent. Many managers have this standpoint. It's not just about the manager, but a lot of managers don't go with so much youth at a certain specific time when they're building out their squads. There is a reason for that, because they are inconsistent. They are young players. They're not developed in terms of they're not a complete player. They struggled. They will struggle. Look at Lenny Yoro. Lenny Yoro is a young guy. He's 18, 19 years old. He's been playing almost every week. He is not as strong as De Ligt. De Ligt has far more experience. De Ligt has played at a higher level, far more than Lenny Yoro, for a way longer period of time. And De Ligt can stay more in form and more strong than Lenny Yoro. Lenny Yoro is going through a hard time right now. And this is because he is a young player and his game is not fully developed. If you add a couple more of them in there, and you rely on them, our inconsistent first team is going to be way more inconsistent and we're going to be in trouble. Yes, so Fernandez, listen, but you can't talk about Mason. Mason is a totally different story. Mason did things that Mason did, and he fucked himself up. So Mason is not that. Alvaro Fernandez is one that we absolutely, in my opinion, we messed that up totally, 110%. And we've talked about this, and we've talked about what the club did. And that was because the club tried to get money for Brandon Williams because his contract was ending. So they prioritized playing Brandon Williams over giving Alvaro Fernandez a chance. They pissed off Alvaro Fernandez. They alienated him. They ended up not getting money for Brandon Williams. And then, obviously, Alvaro didn't want to be at this football club anymore. So we let him go. They messed that up. We're not going to get everything correct at this football club. But what I'm saying is the story of our youth aren't coming through and we're letting them all go is to me is nonsense. It's not happening. We have very good prospects at this football club right now. Some of them are very young. Some of them are getting close to the age where they're about 18, around there, and we would be looking for them to step up in the next season or two. We have Harry Almas is on loan. He's performing very well. We got Vitek, who is a goalkeeper. He's on loan. He's performing very well. We need to let this play out. If the club starts selling these players and getting rid of a large majority of them, and we're talking about these top ones, Cheetah Obi has taken a back seat. And I think it's because Cheetah Obi isn't ready and he's not good enough and he needs more of a development. If we just get rid of Cheeto, if we get rid of Amos, if we get rid of Vitek and we permanently sell them and they're gone, then I think we have an actual concern for what the hell is going on at our football club with the youth. But just because they're not getting put into the first team doesn't mean that they don't have a future and there is no actual pathway into the club and to be part of this club going forward. So this is what I'm trying to say. I think fans are jumping the gun because we're anxious. We want fixes now. We understand the impact. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. Like, we do need to do things now because we need answers now this season so that next season can be better and we can progress and we can move forward. But that's what, in my opinion, that's what the January window is for. The January window is the one where we actually have to go and get somebody to do something to our squad, to our current squad that we can use now in terms of maybe a Conor Gallagher or something like that. Potentially an Angelo Stiller, according to these reports here. So it's good you were talking about this because not a lot of our fans know how the academy works. Well, listen, I'm not like the master or anything, but I just try to have a conversation in terms of let's not like go crazy like chickens with their heads cut off. Let's try and think of it rationally. I think there's a lot of if you go on social media especially, there's a lot of exaggerated, talk going on and it's very extreme. And sometimes I just feel like people write the story out before the story actually plays out and you get to see the ending. It's like going to watch a film and you see the opening sort of half hour and you go, I know how this is going to go. And you write the ending of the story and then you leave the movie theater because you know how it's going to end. And it's like, but you don't even know how it actually was going to go. It could have been what you said, but it could also be something totally different. So, and I just think, for me personally, listen, I don't work for Ineos. I don't work at United. I don't have any inside sources. I never claim to have inside sources. I'm just a fan like everybody else. But I try to be level-headed about it, and I try to give the benefit of the doubt to our football club and what they are doing. And I think, in my opinion, a proper process is sort of what we're looking at here. In that the first team is very unstable. We need to sort that out. And I sort of look to, and I hate, people hate when I do this and people hate when I say things like this, but I think it is a good example. When you look sort of at Arsenal's project, I mean, they did sort of the same thing. People will bring up, look at Arteta, he plays these young players, he brings them in. If you look at the differences between our squad and their squad, if you look at the difference between where they are in their project or our project, it's night and day. Arteta's been there for 6 years. It's very stable. They've been challenging and they've been serious for the Prem for the last 3 seasons. They are in a better place. You can bring a couple more of these youth players to try and fill a couple gaps or holes into your squad because it's a good environment for the players, the young players. The first team players have a strong mentality. They know what they're doing. They're consistent. There aren't worries. There aren't that many holes. You can bring in these players, they can help them and guide them, and you can use them in certain matches. And they're in all of the competitions as well. So there's more opportunities for them. So here's something refreshing. Players fighting on the pitch. Yeah, there are Premier League matches live right now. Unfortunately, I messed this up. I wanted to go live earlier, but I had trouble with the thumbnail because I've been, doing new things. And obviously you can see I've created new thumbnails and I was trying to edit the thumbnail and I've been using Photoshop and I wasn't using Photoshop and I had a problem doing it and it took me way longer than it was supposed to because I thought it was going to be sort of a quick sort of edit and I had to go live later. So, it kind of just Nice owned by Sir Jim. Yes. What about Nice though? So we did have some other updates, and I'm just gonna, sort of run through them because we're not gonna do a long one today. We will be back live tomorrow, but one of the updates, and I mentioned it in the opening of the show, and Manchester City are beating Fulham 2-0 now. I just got the score update. One of the things, or one of the updates that we did got is surrounding Marcus Rashford, and well, before I jump to that, let's do this one, because this goes into the topic that we're talking about. We also got an update saying that Chido Obi, Aiden Heaven, and Diego Leon could all leave on loan this January as well. That's coming from the Sun, so, I mean, we got to see how that plays out. But I think, listen, Heaven, I don't know 100%, but he's also been one that hasn't been getting a lot of game time or opportunities. Cheeto obviously is one that, he's not getting included in the first team. So for me, for Cheeto to go on loan, it makes sense. Diego Leon is another one. We got him in. They have high hopes about him. I don't think there's any interest in permanently selling any 3 of these players. I don't think there's any problem with sending them on loan. Heaven, we kind of got to see. I mean, with the inclusion and the coming back of obviously Lisandro Martinez, you have Harry Maguire, you have Lisandro Martinez, you have De Ligt, you have Euro, and then I guess, there's always Luke Shaw that has been playing in that position as well. You couldn't technically, Mazawari has been used there before, but he hasn't been used there this season, I don't think. So, well, actually, we just put him there last match when Lenny got subbed off. So, with Lisandro back and the filling out of that back line, and obviously we have a lack of sort of matches. We're playing 1 match a week, and you want to be as consistent as possible. You want to play sort of the same players. I mean, as long as they're like, performing, but you want to have sort of the first team play, sort of the same first team play week in, week out. Because, I mean, if they're performing and they're playing well, you would want to keep that. You want to, people always argue you want to play your best 11 and you don't want to chop and change too much, which is obviously what we're going to have to do. But that means that you're not going to have opportunities to play other players, because if the manager decides this is his best starting 11 and he's playing that 11, why would you expect him to start chopping and changing the best 11 just to fit players in? So again, this season, I think, again, this is still, an impact we're having from not winning that Europa League final. It impacted the summer, it impacted the amount of money, it impacted probably maybe some of the plans in terms of getting rid of some players and keeping some players. And we have to deal with it throughout this whole season now, because this is what has happened to us. So there's a lot of movement that could potentially happen for January. It makes a lot of sense if you're going to loan these players out. I'm not in the business of transferring these players out, but loaning these players out is completely fine, especially for this season. And as we've seen, loaning players out, if we can find the right club to loan them to, it can work very well. It's happened with Diallo, and that was sort of pre-Ineos. And, Diallo is one of our main players now, and Amos is on loan, he's doing very well. Vitex on loan, he's doing very well. I believe Dan Gore is on loan as well, and he just had a good game. I don't know how the entire loan has been going, but I just seen that he had a good game the other day when they played. So the loans are helping us, and we are doing well in this aspect in terms of these loans that we're doing for these younger players. They are coming off well in terms of they are playing matches, they are playing well, and they are developing their game at a proper level that they should probably hit first before jumping straight into the giant mess of Manchester United's first team. Ray is here. Says, I was right that Ruben don't rate Mainoo your club. It's all about money. Well, again, we're talking about that there's the potential that, I mean, listen, I think you would be a fool to say that 100% that he won't ever get sold. But right now, that's not what's being told to us. What's being told to us is that they are allowed to leave in January. And when they mean by leave in January, as far as the updates that we've gotten, they have always been a leave on a loan. And a loan makes sense at this current moment in time. I still don't think, and it still doesn't make sense to me, that the club would sell a player like Mainoo at his age, with his potential. It doesn't make sense in terms of what they're doing. So, and just in general, I think just because you're not the player that he wants at 20 doesn't mean you can't become the player that he can use at 21 or 22. So he's not in favor with him right now. I still believe that doesn't mean that you 100% discard him and throw him in the trash. And I don't think that's what's happening. Because they have mentioned Xerxes and Mainoo and others being allowed to go. Now, I think the plan, and I think this is probably what has happened. I think they probably were like, he's probably not going to get much game time because he needs to develop. I think they probably would have let him go out on loan in January. I mean, in the summer, if we had options to have depth in the squad, because they have always been worried, Ruben and the others, Wilcox included, they've always been worried that if you let Xerxes go on loan, if you let Mainoo go on loan in the summer before the season starts, we're not necessarily going to bring players in to sort of replace them because we don't need them. Obviously, the club is overcrowded as it is, which is why they aren't playing. We don't have enough games. But in that terms, they were worried about the depth. They were worried about, we're going to lose 3 players to AFCON, and before you start the season, you don't know what's going to happen to the squad. What happens if we have 4 injuries? What happens if they're long term? We don't have replacements. So I think what they did, without telling us the plan, was that we're going to keep extra players here. It's going to be a bit detrimental to them, but it will be better overall for the squad. In terms of, we will have more depth and the manager will have more options just in case. And I'm saying this because this update specifically right here, where they tell us, where Mark Ogden is telling us, that they will allow these players to leave the club. And I believe Kobbie Mainoo, Xerxes, and even Ugarte, and probably Malacia, because I don't think anybody's going to buy him. I think they will probably all be loans. But they're telling us here that they won't let them leave before the end of AFCON on January 18th. So it seems very quite clear that they wanted to keep these players here just in case, because it is beneficial to the squad itself, to Manchester United as a whole, at the detriment of their playing time. Get to January, let our players come back from AFCON, and then let them go out on loan in the last 2 weeks of January and let them play. Now, you might not agree with that, but this is what they've done, and this seems like the plan, and maybe it was the plan all along, which is why they didn't let Kobbie go on loan in the summer, because they needed him to hold over the spot. Maybe that's why they didn't let Xerxes go in the summer as well, because they needed to hold over a spot, just in case, because you just never know. I mean, we've seen, obviously, Sesko was out for a few weeks. Cunha got injured, and he's missed 2 matches. You know, if these injuries were more serious, we'd be more short. There's always a little bit of a question mark over Mason Mount. He's had some injury problems in the past. What if he suffered one that was more serious? You know, the squad would start looking very thin, and you would be at a lack of options. So, you know, Ray is saying sell young guns for cash. We're not selling young guns for cash. That's not the update that we've gotten. That's not the story. The story is that they are allowed to go. What does go mean? Go means they have not told us that they are going to permanently sell these players. Specifically Kobbie Mainoo and even Joshua Xerxes. Go has meant that they have been asking for loans. They want to go play. And you can go on loan. Because that's what they're asking for. Kobbie is still not... It's still not been reported that Kobbie wants a permanent deal. And it's still not been reported that Manchester United are in the business or looking to permanently sell Kobbie Mainoo. That is not what we are being told. So you can believe whatever you want. That's fine. It's your opinion. But I'm just telling you what the news and what we are being reported. That's not the case as of right now. So, Lucky is here, says Mason Mount, very important things we do. DJ says, if Xerxes stood in my garden long enough, our Ruben family would nest in his hair. I mean, it is very fluffy. Xerxes Mount, hopefully Cunha, you will be steady, not tired, and training today. Lisandro can get start. Ray says, I'm happy for Mainoo. He deserves better from what is going on. Well, listen, again, I don't think that they've given up on him. So I don't think he's going to permanently go. I think at this point, you know what? It's quite clear that he's just not going to be able to get into the team. And with the lack of games we have, he's not going to get the opportunity to sort of prove himself. So it makes sense to send them out on loan. And he might as well. And this plan seems more logical in terms of keeping them here for the entire season. It seems like they wanted to do it temporarily and that they would address this back in, you know, once we get to January, and it would be a short-term, I guess, sort of pain for both of these players. So this is what it seems like it is right now. Hopefully that's the case in terms of, you know, they let them go on loan and let them go play. And then we sort our shit out here, finish in a good position, get in Europe, and then hopefully everything is back to normal and we don't have to be talking about this situation, because I'm quite tired of it, and I think it's really just it's exhausting. It's exhausting. DJ says, dude, you do a fantastic show as usual. How is life in your city, man? Yeah, it's all right. Well, thank you for I appreciate the you know, the positivity in the comments. I appreciate that. Yeah, same old, same old. I mean, it's cold right now. It's very cold. You know, winter, December. It gets very, very cold over here. And so not a lot of going outside. Thankfully, I don't live in New York City, though. I don't really like this city in terms of, you know, living there. Too many people, too much crazy stuff going on. I live outside the city in the suburbs. So otherwise, just, you know, normal, peaceful. But thank you for asking, you know. How's it going over there for you? Lisandro Martinez, along with Mateus Delit. People hate Tuesday and cold coffee in the office. Yeah, I mean, listen, you never want a cold coffee. I would say a Monday. Joshua Zirkzee, I'm not going to sell because AFCON Kobbie. Well, but this is what we're talking about here, Lucky. That this seems to be the plan the whole time in terms of this is why they probably didn't let them go on loan, even Manuel Ugarte to that extent. Because again, as I've talked about, there was a report that said we were potentially looking to send him out on loan, with potentially maybe selling him. We didn't do that. We didn't let any of these guys go. You know, exclude Malacia because he was just a different story. The deal fell through, and he's clearly, obviously, he literally has zero future. But these three guys, to me, the most logical thing seems that they were obviously always very concerned about the squad depth. Ruben doesn't want to be short on players. I think Jason Wilcox has agreed with him on that because he has to work with Ruben on these things hand in hand. They are the ones that come up with the plan together. And it seems like this is what they did. And unfortunately, like I said before, sometimes you have to make a decision that benefits the whole at a detriment to a few others. You're not going to be able to please everybody. It's literally impossible. You can never do it in any aspect of life. Somebody's always going to sort of get the short end of the stick. And that's what's happened. You know, they clearly are down the pecking order. And we don't have enough opportunities in terms of we don't have to rotate. We don't have to rotate. This is the point. People want him to rotate for the sake of rotating to give them game time. You don't have to rotate. He doesn't have to rotate. Actually, in general, in the past, when we've had managers chop and change too much and not play the strongest starting team and not play the players on a consistent basis and change too much, fans have complained that he changes the first team, that the manager changes the first team too much. Why would you chop and change in this season? We're playing once a week, 90 minutes. Whatever player you pick to start should be able to play 90 minutes and should be able to play next week full 90 minutes. And you shouldn't have to rotate them unless they're playing very bad. But you can say some individual performances haven't been great, but in Manchester United, since September 29th, we have about a 60% win ratio. So the team is actually doing well in the circumstances fine that it's at, and he wants to continue that. So he's going to continue to play the players that he's been playing, of course. Agree. Stay home, stay warm with us. So that's what I'm doing for sure. So, where are we in the show? How long have we been live? 52 minutes. All right, a couple more minutes. So I just want to hit on Marcus Rashford. We've gotten some updates surrounding Marcus Rashford. Obviously, he's been on loan in Barcelona. You know, the hype has died down around him, which I always find quite hilarious because when a player that we get rid of in one form or another, whether we sell them or we loan them out, and they have struggled massively at Manchester United, and they tend to go somewhere else and play well, everybody talks about it. And everybody hits us very hard for it. And everybody says that we ruined the players. You know, and I have my arguments against this. If they go to a Premier League club and they play very good in the Premier League, I think it's 100% directly on us. If they go to some other league to play a different type of football with a different type of club with a different structure, and also it depends, you know, what club you're talking about, because some of them, like Anthony, has gone to Real Betis. Obviously, Betis does not have the pressures of Manchester United, and it's in the La Liga. It's a totally different football. Scott McTominay, well, I think Napoli is generally deemed as sort of a big club. It's obviously not Manchester United. It doesn't have the same pressures, and obviously he's playing in the Serie A, which is totally different. That's why you see people like, for example, in the past, Mkhitaryan has gone there, and Mkhitaryan was starting in Inter Milan starting lineup at the age of 38, playing Champions League matches week in, week out with them. He would never do that in the Premier League at a top-tier club. No top six club would have Henrik Mkhitaryan starting in their lineup week in, week out in the Premier League at 38 years of age. It just would never happen. And that's obviously because of the clear difference of football. So Marcus Rashford, obviously, he started very hot. He was doing very good. And everybody wanted to talk about how Marcus Rashford was renewed. And Marcus Rashford was so much better now that he's not at United. And United is clearly the problem. Well, what has happened that Marcus Rashford's form has dipped, and now Barcelona are seriously considering whether to actually sign him or not, because when he was doing very good, they said that they were very interested in doing so. His form has dipped and gone down, And now they don't seem so interested in signing him anymore. And to that, I will say, but it was all United's fault that Marcus wasn't playing well. It was all United's fault that Marcus, wasn't in good form. It was all Manchester United's fault, all 100%. And, because Marcus now left, Manchester United and he's playing at Barca, like we're seeing the true Marcus Rashford, we were always holding him back. We always held him down. It had nothing to do with Marcus himself as a player. No. But obviously I'm being a sarcastic dick because I think the narrative is always just narratives nowadays are so completely blown out of proportion. Nobody wants to be level-headed. Everybody wants to be extreme because that's what gets you clicks and that's what gets you interaction. But I don't buy into that. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. And I don't believe in operating that way. So I'm just looking for the Marcus Rashford update because I lost it. To be quite honest, I lost it. I had it and I lost it. So where is it? I don't know where it is. It's amazing how I can't find these things after. So, should Marcus Rashford's loan spell at Barcelona conclude without a permanent deal, which is the most likely outcome currently, the Catalan club would look for a replacement, and that is coming from Paul Balas and The Athletic. So, he doesn't seem to be, Barca don't seem to be favoring him to keep him. It seems like they've used him. In that terms, they don't want to pay the money for him. They don't want to pay his wages. And it seems like they're using him for this season and they're going to send him back to us and then we're going to have to deal with him. So in that terms, it's not good. Not good because we're going to have to figure out what we do with him. And what I mean, well, what we do with him is obviously he's not coming back into the squad. Like that's not an option. What we do with him is where are we going to sell him? And what are we going to do with him? He doesn't have a lot left on his contract. I think he has about 2 years after this year. So we're going to have to find a deal for him. And this is much more in a pain in the ass because we thought that, we had a very good chance with Barca and we could wipe our hands clean and move forward, get the wages off, get a bit of money for him. He is an academy product, so we would be pure profit, whatever we get for him. And we can move forward. Now it seems like we're going to have to take a step back to go forward with him, unfortunately. So it is a bad thing. Box is here as well. What's up, Box? What's up, guys? Axe is here. You knew I was live. If you knew I was live, why didn't you join earlier? No, just joking. I'm messing around. DJ says, if Marcus decided to give up tomorrow after 187 million a year for God knows how many years, I'd have retired after I scored 30 goals that season. Box says if we bring in 2 ready-made top centre mids who fit the Amorim 2-man centre mid system, then it's a no-brainer to cash in on the other centre mids. Well, the reason why I have that poll is because some people have been talking about this in sort of the fan base. And I guess maybe it could always be a possibility. Now, I want to make it very clear, this is not what is actually on the cards directly for us right now. It is just a talking point. It is just maybe a possibility that can happen. But I would say right now, I don't deem it very likely in the sense of that this is what the club is looking to do and that they're going to bring in two brand new midfielders and they're going to sell Kobbie. Right now, Manchester United has apparently told that Kobbie and Xerxes, amongst a couple others, Ugarte is included in there, and Tyrell Malacia, and then some younger players like Aiden Heaven, Diego Leon, and somebody else, that they're open to looking for loans in the January window. Nothing has told us that Kobbie is going to be sold permanently in January. And there's nothing saying Kobbie is going to be sold permanently in the summer as of right now. So that's still not on the cards for us as of right now. But I've heard some people, Box, say that the only way that they would that it would sort of soften, I guess, sort of the blow if Kobbie Mainoo was to go permanently, is if you do go and sign 2 top-tier centre mids that obviously fit the system, can go right in and play. Me, personally, I can understand, I guess, the stance of you would say it would soften the blow, but I still don't agree with it, and I still don't think it would make sense. Like, he doesn't have to be so much in favor with Ruben right now, in terms of he doesn't have to be Ruben's #1 choice, and he doesn't have to be Ruben's top pick for the matches. He doesn't need to be starting. He is 20. I still hold the belief that at 20 years of age, you might not be the starter now, but you could be the starter at 21, or you could be the starter at 22. I think for our situation at the football club, as we all know, we don't have enough matches. There's no need to force rotations if you don't need them. They should be able to play 90 minutes every single week, regardless. And on a regular thing, I think if it wasn't Ruben and it was some manager that more people liked, they would prefer the manager to play the best starting 11. Which Ruben has deemed what his best starting 11 is, because we all know what it is, because he plays it almost every week. So, or he basically plays it every week. So, Rashford honeymoon over. Well, maybe, Lyle once upon a time said, well, listen, he doesn't know if it was going to stay around for long because, Rashford sort of had a bit of a point to prove and he wanted to get back into the England squad. He's back in the England squad. So maybe the levels have dipped a bit because maybe he's been, maybe he's gotten a bit comfortable there in that he feels like his position is secure and maybe the levels have dipped. So I don't know. Just offload him for whatever we can get now. But we need somebody to be in for him and to want him, Fox. You know what I mean? That's the issue, I think, that we face. I don't really think it's about sort of semantics. Obviously, we'll look to try and get the best fee and best deal possible, but I think we're running a little bit out of time in terms of trying to argue that, because again, his contract will be running down. So, if Barca don't make the move for him, we obviously have to get it done next summer, because you can't leave 1 year, if you don't get it by next summer, then it's over. Yeah, because it's going to be 1 year. He'll just run it down, and then it'll be like Sancho to a certain degree. Lawrence Burry says, I'd have Marcus back, but it's Marcus or Ruben. Maybe he'll return later like CR7. I'm going to be quite honest, Lawrence. I don't think it's Marcus or Ruben. I think Ruben has a play and part of this, but I don't think it's specifically Marcus or Ruben. I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Jason Wilcox, and whoever else works in that team, I think it's all of them, including Ruben Amorim versus Marcus Rashford. I do. Because the way this setup is supposed to go, Ruben has say, but he doesn't have full power. And as we've seen with other transfers, specifically Bruno Fernandes, the club doesn't want to sell him. The club could have sold him, regardless of what Ruben wanted. They could have sold him. They can sell them. Clubs do this all the time. Just because a manager wants to keep a player or doesn't want to keep a player, sometimes they deem that the player is valuable to the club and they will keep this player. I think that I think Ruben wasn't happy. I think Ruben complained. And I think they all agreed with Ruben that they did not like what they were seeing from Marcus Rashford since they've come into the football club and they've watched him. Because they watched him before Ruben was there. They watched him under Erik ten Hag. They saw what he was giving. They saw what he was giving in training. So I think that they were pretty displeased. So I don't think, even if you... And this is why I don't believe this, because people will say it's Ruben versus Rashford. And if you get rid of Ruben, then Rashford comes back. And I don't think that's the case. I think you can sack Ruben Amorim today, and I don't think Marcus Rashford is ever coming back to this football club, because I don't think they want him. I think they were very displeased with what he was showing and giving us, and I think that was sort of the nail in the coffin. If you look at Sir Jim, when he did that interview, and they asked him about Ruben Amorim's decision on Marcus Rashford, the way Sir Jim answered that question seemed like he had his own sort of disappointment slash disgust in what Marcus Rashford was giving to this football club. So I don't think it was just Ruben, and I don't think it is. So I think if Ruben goes, I literally think there's a 0% chance of Marcus Rashford coming back to this football club, because I don't think I don't think it's 100% on Ruben. I think they've all come to the agreement that they don't want him and they don't see him being good at this football club, and they would like to move on. Fox says that's why obligated loans are essential. Still don't know why how Chelsea wriggled out of that Sancho. Well, we gave them the option to do it. Maybe they wouldn't have taken the deal if we didn't give them that sort of 5 million option out. Maybe they, it's negotiations. Maybe they wouldn't have agreed to sort of that. And listen, the same thing is probably with Barca, because I mean, listen, we know Barca has money trouble. They've had money trouble for a while. They need to be sort of stingy with their thing, and they're not like out of the woods with that sort of stuff. So, and Rashford sort of made it very difficult because he didn't really want to go anywhere besides Barcelona. So it was very hard to kind of negotiate with Barca and make an obligation to buy when they don't really want that, because they didn't really necessarily want to take the risk, and they didn't necessarily want to take the risk on paying that amount of money, and we didn't really have wiggle room there. But we'll see what happens with Rashford if Barcelona basically reject him, because then you can continue to sort of try and twerk for Barcelona, I guess, and maybe try and make things happen and say, I'll lower my wages even further, I'll do this, whatever it is. Or he can accept that they don't want me and then try to look to go somewhere else. And then maybe we can make a better deal out of it. So, Max says, Mainoo forever. Mainoo is my boy. Same as McTominay, my boys, my duo brothers of total football. Well, I like Mainoo. I do. I like Mainoo. I believe in Mainoo. And I don't think Mainoo, as of right now, even if he's not in favor of Ruben Amorim, in terms of the club and the whole project, Ineos' standpoint, it doesn't make sense to me that they would sell him. I don't think it's in the interest of Jason Wilcox, who has a history working with young players and bringing in players like that into clubs, into teams, and developing them. I don't think it makes sense from his standpoint. I don't think it makes sense from what we've been doing in terms of bringing in young players. I don't think it makes sense in permanently letting him go at this moment in time at the age of 20. Like I said, he might not be in favor right now. He might not have, from the manager's mouth, he might not have the characteristics he's specifically looking for certain positions, to use him in one or two positions, but that doesn't mean that he can't develop them or come good in 1 to 2 years. Things can change for a young guy, and you can mold yourself more into a player. Now, his future maybe isn't in, many people say that they view him more as in one of the 10 positions than they do in the 2-man center mid. That might be very true, but I would still argue whether it's in the center, it's in the one of the 2 center mids that we currently play, or the 2 number 10s. I can see some of the reasons for why he doesn't see that he has the characteristics to play there. He needs to, in my opinion, he needs to buff up a little bit. He does. And his speed probably needs to improve a little bit in terms of the pressing. We know his good qualities. We know he has composure like you've never seen before. We know he's calm. We know he has sort of, he's good in tight spaces and stuff like that. But when I look at Mainoo and I look at the 10, in my opinion, I still think that, Cunha is ahead of him there, and so is Mbeumo, because they're just more rounded out. They're just more developed. They're more experienced. So I don't think it's like it's over. I've never believed it's over, and I have to see it to believe it. If they actually kick him out the door and they get rid of him, then, that's when obviously I'll have to accept it. But until that happens, because if it does happen or if it doesn't happen, but until that would happen, then to me, it doesn't make sense. It's not logical in many fronts. In many fronts, it doesn't make sense. We do have a poll going, 12 votes. It is split 50-50 right now, so make sure you vote in the poll. I am very behind in the chat. I apologize. So, I will just run through some comments. Rashford will be sold. Rashford is past his best. Rashford back. Mainoo in. Yeah, Rashford's not coming back. I'm telling you, he's not coming back. It doesn't matter what manager we have here. He's not coming back. They've Omar Barada, Will Cox, and the rest of them have made a decision on him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let him leave. If they viewed him that that important. So, Lucky says we will buy Premier League players January or summer, 2 midfielders and a centre back. Well, I think for the summer, definitely we're looking to get in, Wharton, Baleba, Stiller, Anderson. Those are all Premier League players for sure. Box says if Mainoo goes, it is what it is. We need to sign 2 class centre mids regardless if he stays or go. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think I envision that you don't have to necessarily sell him to get these 2 guys in. I would go down the route of getting rid of Casemiro. I don't know what we do with Bruno, but I don't think Bruno should be playing there. And if you get 2 centre mids, and I think Ugarte should probably go as well, because he just seems super out of favor. Like, and this is the thing, like, obviously people like Mainoo a lot more than they like Ugarte. And nobody gives a shit about Ugarte not playing. And nobody gives a shit if Ugarte doesn't get sold. But when I look at it, if people are going crazy over Kobbie Mainoo because he's not getting game time and they think that he's going to leave the football club, well, then I would literally put that back onto Ugarte and be like, if you think Kobbie Mainoo is going to leave the football club, then I think Ugarte is definitely 100% getting sold. Like, I think he has no chance at all. So the way I look at it is like, if I'm doing this, I'm letting Cass go and I'm selling Ugarte for sure, and I'm moving Bruno out of there. Now, and I'm getting 2 centre mids, and that leaves me with 2 new centre mids, and then Kobbie Mainoo. And I don't know, we got to sort it out in one way or the other. Either Kobbie goes to play and be somebody in a 10, or he develops into the centre mid and you develop him there. I don't know what the best answer is. Some people believe he's a better 10 and he can't play in a 2-man midfield, but whatever it is, there's got to be a plan and go forward with it. He's either going to be a 10 or he's going to be in the 2 centre mid slots. I don't know. Whichever one, pick one, go with it, and let's get moving. Steph says, I voted yes, but I can't see Kobbie going anywhere. Big up Eric and experienced Red Devils. Well, thank you, Steph. Appreciate it. I seen people talking about this. So I thought it was interesting. I don't think right now, I don't think it is like the biggest thing. I don't think it's the main thing that's going to happen. I think could always certainly be a possibility. But I don't think the plan is we need to sell Kobbie Mainoo so we could go and get 2 centre mids. I think they're looking for 2 centre mids anyway. And I think, if Ugarte goes and they don't keep Casemiro, I think you're going to have to sign two centre mids anyway. So, Box says we've lost other youth talent before Mainoo, and we'll lose other youth talent after him. That's football. Yeah, but I think it's kind of stupid in that regards. I'm not going to lie, because I think we have lost him, but it doesn't feel right to me at 20 years old, you get rid of him. I don't, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. Like, I don't think he's not Tom Cleverley. He's not Collier. He's better than these guys. Like, he's not fucking Gibson or something like that. And I personally, he's better than Dan Gore. He's better than, a lot of these guys. I have no problem with taking a longer route with him, and I think you can, because he's 20. And like I said, you might not be a starter at 20, but you could be a starter at 22. And obviously the club has to have a better improved position in terms of we need to be back in all of the competitions. We need to be able to actually properly rotate and play as many games as possible. I think that will also help the situation and give him more opportunities that we obviously can't do right now. But, like Box says, like, we've lost Greenwood, we've lost Alvaro, we've lost Angel Gomez, Henderson, McTominay, etc. have all departed. We carry on. And I get that. We do carry on. I don't think, like, the world ends. I just think that, with some of those players, obviously Greenwood had his own problems and, maybe you could blame United a little bit, but obviously, in my opinion, I hold true. He fucked himself on that one, and it wasn't like the club sort of did something to. It wasn't like the club like ignored him. It wasn't like the club like gave up on him. It wasn't like the club didn't try to develop him. That one, I put it a lot on him because obviously, what transpired. Alvaro, I think for us was a mistake, and I think we got that wrong in Alvaro, and I think we own that one 100%. Now we have to move forward, but I think it did damage to us because I think we could actually be using him right now. You see what's going on at the left-hand side. You see Dorgu struggling. You see Delo, obviously, he's struggling himself, but I mean, he's not even he's a right-footed player trying to play left back. It doesn't help. And you see Alvaro playing for Real Madrid. So I think we clearly, obviously, got that one wrong. And I think the difference is obviously Alvaro is not, he's not English. And, we got him at sort of a younger age, but Kobbie has come through, he's come through the youth system all the way from like the very beginning. So I think there's a difference in terms of we clearly pissed off Alvaro Fernandez. We clearly, made Alvaro pissed and wanted to leave the football club. I think Kobbie is not happy, but I think Kobbie, sort of like Rashford, he has a special attachment. He doesn't want to leave this football club permanently. And then, even McTominay, he didn't want to leave. He didn't want to leave. If he had his way, he would have stayed here. We forced him to go. And I don't even think it was a mistake because, again, he plays in Italy. It's totally different football. And we needed to sell him because his best position was obviously where Bruno plays. He was never going to start over Bruno. And we needed money to sign a midfielder. And Angel Gomez, we got rid of Angel Gomez. And Angel Gomez, listen, a lot of people liked Angel Gomez, but look at where Angel Gomez is. He's playing in League One. I don't think it was like the greatest. To me, it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a mess up. I don't think he was good enough for United, and it probably wasn't gonna work out. But for me, Kobbie, I think we've seen what he can do. We've seen him start. And we see that he could play in the Prem. And I just think that, to totally get rid of him at 20, it feels very anti-United to me. And it doesn't make sense to the project. It doesn't make sense to a lot of things. So I would like for him to get some more opportunities over the next, I would like for him to stick around for at least another, 2 years or so. And I think if you can't, sort of make it happen by the time you're, 22 or something like that, then, then it's time to go. But I think at 20 and only having, about 1.5 seasons because of the injury and stuff like that, I just think it's too soon. I feel like it's very un-United to give up on a player like that. And I actually don't think that we're actually looking to do that. So Steph says Rashford thinks he's bigger than the club. That's why he isn't here anymore. Well, yeah, I don't think he had a very good attitude in training and the way he was handling his situation and stuff. And obviously, I think they were very displeased with that because that's one of the things that they've been focusing on. They've been focusing on personality, attitude, coupled with ability, of course, but what you do, how you're conducting yourself as a professional, what you're doing every day when you're coming into Carrington, and then what you're doing on the pitch during the matches. So, Alaya says, to be honest, the fact that Rashford coming back is still discussed is beyond me. I mean, I don't know. From a fan perspective, some people want him back. They never wanted him sold, but in a reality situation, practically, he's when they if the media says he would come back, it's because we can't, because Barcelona is sending him back to us. You know what I mean? He's still contracted to us and he's on loan. So, but in terms of being back, he's never coming back into the squad and we're done with him. So, it's the same thing as Sancho. They still, every once in a while they try to run a story that Sancho might potentially come back into the squad. It was never going to happen. It's never going to happen. He is done. He is done. Ineos have made the decision along with the manager. He is done. like 100%. You don't loan these players out. You don't loan a player out like Marcus Rashford if he had some sort of future. You know, unless he takes his tail between his legs and he literally goes to Amorim on his knees begging, which I don't think he'll do. And even then, even if he did that, I still don't think he has a chance. Like, you know, even if Rashford went in front of the entire board and Ruben, went on his knees and hands and begged them, I still don't think that they would be like, yeah, we'll give you another chance. I think he's totally done. You know, he's totally done. Like, there's just no way. So that's how I view it. That's how I play it. Any story that says there might be a potential he comes back, you know, into the squad and plays at Manchester United again, I think is totally rubbish. I think it's nonsense, and I literally don't even pay attention to it. It's, you know, it's just complete garbage to me, and I'm just like, yeah, he's never coming back. So just ignore it. You know, for me, the way I view it, he's already sold. He's already gone. So, Marcus wants Barcelona, PSG, but what happens when Barcelona don't want you? You know what I mean? Again, it's sort of like that scenario is like, you know, you might be interested in a person. If they're not interested in you, you know, what are you going to do? Keep chasing after them, or are you going to accept that they don't want you and then you know, go chase somebody else or something, you know? So, Fulham are crumbling, losing 1-4 to Manchester City in the 47 minutes. Wow. What about the other two scores that were going on before this? What were they doing? Foden didn't always play for Pep City in the early days. Mainoo is still young and the best player born in Stockport. And see, this is what I'm talking about, Stefan. I wish the internet and fans out there in the fan base were just more level-headed. I feel like, again, you know, I said this, many of you weren't here, but I just feel like, you know, it's this whole thing to me is like, it's like going to watch a film at the theater. You watch the first sort of 30 minutes to it, first 30, 45 minutes, and you go, all right, I know how this story is going. I know how the ending is. You get up in the middle of the movie, you walk out of the movie theater and you go, yep, I know exactly how it ended, and that's it. And you don't actually stick around in the movie theater to watch the film fucking unfold and watch the actual ending. You know, you might be right with the presumption you made. You might be right, and it might actually be the ending. Or you might be a bit surprised, or you might be wrong, and the ending might be something different and you got it wrong, you know? So, and that's kind of like how I look at things. Like, I'm gonna let it play out. I think many people write the conclusion to the story before the story even goes. We are fans. We are on the outside. We don't know what is going on inside the club. We get reports of things. We don't trust the media, but then all of a sudden we want to trust the media on everything. You know, we trust the media when it's convenient to us. We don't trust the media when it's not convenient to us. You know, this is the whole thing. And I know, you know, I'm very boring because I go straight down the middle and I try to be balanced, but I don't really give a shit because I'd rather, you know, have sensible talk and try and be like level-headed and have like an actual real conversation than be some prat or some moron screaming at the camera for 45 minutes to get clicks and interaction, because that's what sells. You know, I could do this show so differently. I could literally sit here, be half fake, and be like, fuck Ineos, fuck Ruben Amorim, fuck Manchester United, fuck them all. They're getting rid of Kobbie. This is bullshit. Blah 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 blah, and scream for 45 minutes at the camera. When we don't know what's actually going to happen, because we don't know the plans. We don't work at Manchester United. We don't know what their actual idea is. All we know is what the media tells us and what we get told. And when the story is convenient for us to like, we trust the media. And when it's a story that we don't like, we say, fuck the media, they're lying. You know, so... but I went off on a bit of a tangent, but I think you're right, Steph. You know, Foden didn't always play for Pep City. Nobody gave a shit because it was Manchester City and it's Philip Foden, but because it's Manchester and it's Kobbie Mainoo and it's Ruben Amorim, it's the end of days. You know, we've destroyed Kobbie and he has no future, and he should probably, you know, at this point, he should probably not even, he should give up on football totally. He should go and just, you know, go work at fucking, I don't know. Go work at Tesco or some shit, Kobbie. Don't even bother, bro. Don't even bother. You know, your career is over. It's so totally over. Go work at Tesco, my friend. That's where you belong. There are only few better midfielders in the world than other than Mainoo. See, I tell you, I think you're totally wrong. I think you're totally wrong. I think you're jumping the gun on that. And when I mean by you're wrong, I don't think that's true. I think Kobbie Mainoo has the potential to become one of the best players and one of the best midfielders in the world. Right now, there is not only a few. I could probably name about 15 to 20. Off the top of my head, for starts, literally the 3 midfield targets that we're looking at, they're all better than Kobbie. For what we need in our system, in our position, they're all better than Kobbie. Jude Bellingham is better than Kobbie. De Jong is better than Kobbie. Pedri is better than Kobbie. At this current moment in time. This is off the top of my head. Doesn't mean Kobbie is terrible, but I don't agree that there's only a few better midfielders in the world. He is not on that level yet. Fox says Mainoo arguably the greatest sentiment in the history of football. Yeah, he's better than Hullet. You know, he's better than everybody, pretty much. He's better than Modric. He's better than Pirlo. You know, I don't know. Think of, you know, the greatest midfielder you've ever seen. He's better than him, for sure. 100%. Totally better. Totally better. I'm telling you, the right plan. Amorim sacked, Ineos out, Glazers killed. Pish Pash Posh, back to a 4-3. Mainoo as captain, kaboom, new EPL title and UCL finals. All right, now you've gone into just crazy mode. Mainoo has been a bit overrated. I don't think he's overrated. I just think that there just seems to be this weird agenda push to... the way I view it is like the process is just being skipped here because of favoritism. That's how I see it. The process is being skipped because of favoritism. Like, I don't understand why he can't fight for his place. I don't understand why he can't, in the short term, take a back seat. I don't understand why that's such a problem. Lots of 20-year-olds go through that. You know, I don't really get why. To me, it seems like people want him to sort of skip the line because we've sort of made that decision anyway under Ten Hag, and we were using him. But I don't even agree that we should have been relying on a 19-year-old to literally boss our midfield. I think if you have a 19-year-old bossing and leading your midfield, I think our squad and our team have a much bigger issue and problem. Because, like, Lamine Yamal plays in the Barcelona squad, but Lamine Yamal is a winger. The midfield in the central is much more important, and it's totally different. Look at the players Lamine is surrounded with. You know, I think it's two totally different things. The fan base doesn't help putting these guys on pedestals. Well, that's what I mean. Like, it just, to me, I get the feeling of, like, people want him to sort of, like, cut the line because they deem him as special. So he should get special privileges. And while I think he's a very, while I like him, and I think he's a good player now, and I think he can, I honestly truly believe he could become one of the best midfielders in the world, like top 5. I think he can. I think he has the potential for it. And it sort of his natural ability that he already has right now, he can. But I think for that to happen, Kobbie would have to be like 23, 24, 25. Then he starts hitting his prime. Like, you know, there is a process to build into that. Fulham 1, Man City 5. Fulham 2, Man City 5. Andresito says, I worry about youth development. It seems non-existent at the moment. I was Eric Ten Hag out because he was rallying, bringing up our schools. Amorim has or is getting rid of some bright stars. Cheers, Eric. Well, again, I sort of talked about this before, and you know, again, many of you weren't here, so I will repeat it. I think what's happening right now, and like Andresito has bring this up, and I'm not going like I'm not attacking Andresito because Andresito is saying things that people have, and I don't think they're not valid concerns. But I think where the standpoint is, how I see it right now, is that Ineos, in terms of, I hate saying Ineos because it includes Sir Jim, and I don't think Sir Jim is really like all that involved in what's going on right now. I think between Jason Wilcox and probably Omar Barada and Ruben Amorim and Vivel and whoever else is involved in those things, the people that work under Wilcox specifically and stuff like that, I think the youth is obviously to them deemed as a longer term road. It's a longer term project. The youth is not, in their eyes, is not viewed as a immediate answer to the problems we have right now. The youth they're not looking at the youth to be quick fixes for what we have in the first team. Whereas many fans out there look at it and say, we have problems in the squad, use these youth kids because they can plug some gaps. Now, one could be right, and the other, one has to be right and one has to be wrong. My standpoint is, I think, and I sort of go along with the club and what's going on. I think that the youth should not be rushed. I don't think it's a proper place right now to be throwing in a bunch of youth players. I used Lenny Yoro as an example. And if you compare Lenny Yoro to Matthijs de Ligt, look what's happening to Lenny Yoro. Lenny Yoro is a young guy with less experience than Matthijs de Ligt. He played in the French league. We bring him here. Lenny Yoro has been playing a lot of matches when you compare him to Kobbie Mainoo or Cheeto Obi or, any other youth player you want to talk about that you want to bring and throw up into the youth team. He's been playing way more for us, more consistently. He's played a lot of matches. He is struggling right now. Yeah, he has hit sort of a bad patch in form. And de Ligt has not. And this is because de Ligt is more experienced on a higher level, and so he can keep his levels up. He is more rounded out in his game than Lenny Yoro is. Lenny Yoro still has to develop and improve his game. So I think if you do that with another 2 or 3 players, and they're even less experienced than Lenny, because Lenny was playing League One football, and they're less experienced than Lenny, and I think you take that, they're always going to be inconsistent, these youth guys. They will play good, but they will definitely play bad. 100%. And for them to get out of a rut, it's probably more difficult than some players that have already been through this, that are a little bit older. So the way I view it is, if you take another 2, 3 young guys and you throw them into that squad, that first team is already, as we've already said, it's very inconsistent. We are looking for consistency. Ruben and everybody else is looking for consistency. If you take 2 or 3 more younger guys, they are by naturally default inconsistent players. It's why many managers don't rely on young players like that, because they are inconsistent. They will fall out of form. They will struggle to get back into form. They will have problems and issues. They are young guys. They are not even literally adults. They don't even know how to necessarily navigate life to a certain extent. So this is what I think, that the fan base, some fans in the fan base, they're looking to the youth to be quick fixes, and the club quite clearly does not view the youth as quick fixes. They're looking to them to a longer term process where they develop properly, and eventually we will start seeing this. And I think a cause for concern will be, of the top prospects we have right now, name whoever you want. Could be Harry Amos, could be Vitek, could say Cheeto Obi. If a majority of these guys don't actually at some point, eventually, get an opportunity, and we start selling them out the door in large numbers and quantities, I think that's, obviously cause for alarm and mass panic, because obviously then it's not what I'm saying. It's obviously something different. It's obviously they're using them to farm players to use for money. But right now, that's not the case. Right now, what's happening at our football club is that we're not bringing them into the first team, but they are playing in under 18s or under 21s. And then the ones that we deem are doing well enough, we are sending them on loan to continue to further their development, in the hopes that they do that, and then they actually reach the level where we can actually rely on them a lot more to play in the first team in the Premier League week in, week out. In the meantime, we are in a season where, again, there's no room for rotation unless you want to force rotation. but there isn't really a need to rotate. We don't have European matches. We should be getting less injuries because of this. We're not in the Carabao Cup, and the FA Cup doesn't start until January. So, unless you want the managers to start forcing rotation for the sake of rotating players because just to get them in, and not play the best 11 or his best 11, which contradicts literally every manager we've ever had, because everybody always complained Solskjaer changes the starting lineup too much. Ten Hag changes the starting lineup too much, and then he doesn't change the starting lineup too much. You know, in a season where we're playing once a week pretty much, except for this period right now, but every single player that we have on that pitch, they should be able to play 90 minutes and then play the next 90 minutes. There shouldn't really need to be a huge rotation. Couple subs in the match, but other than that, you don't have to do normal rotation. Thank you, Box. Axe says, I believe that Mainoo played in a system that suits him would be better than our current targets in our present style, honestly, here. Well, you know what? Maybe so. And see, on that one, Axe, I will leave it open to, I think that's a valid thing to say, and I think it's something that you can definitely have like a real discussion on, for sure. And I will say, like, listen, I think, I still think part of me believes that while he probably has to develop a little bit more, I think Kobbie could eventually become a player that, can play in a 2. But I think for right now, quite clearly, he would need to play in a 3 for what he's got. And he obviously played in a 3, and he did well there, and we no longer play in a 3. So obviously, I can see how these circumstances come. I think when you break it down a bit, playing in a 3 and then getting the guys that play in a 2, I think is a bit different, because it depends what he's doing in the 3 and how he's playing. And I when I think of Wharton, when I think of Baleba, or when I think of Elliot Anderson, I just, for me, it's hard to compare them to Kobbie Mainoo in that way, because if Kobbie's playing in a 3 and you play a 3, I still think when you have the 3, you would play, just for like argument's sake, Anderson, Kobbie Mainoo, and Baleba, for example. So, and they would be doing different jobs. So to say he's better, I don't know, because I still view them as not the same types of midfielders, and they would be doing different jobs. And I think they would all end up next to each other, actually, because I think they would play and they would add different aspects to the game in a certain sense. So I don't know if I would say he would be better than them, because I think it's different. Yaya United says, I think that any young prospect, and welcome to the chat, by the way. I think that any young prospect that was part of the last 5 years in any shape or form should be considered compromised. They were brought up in an environment where standards were non-existent. I mean, I get what you're saying. I just don't know. To me, they could be compromised. I get what you're saying, and I see where you're coming from. But I think because they're young and they're still sort of impressionable, and I still believe up to a certain age you can really still mold, young players. I don't know. I mean, listen, I think it would be much easier if I was like with them every day on the training ground, and I could see them and like how they interact and how they do and like how they're carrying themselves, not watching them once a week on, a screen or in the stadium in a match. If you were actually like sort of hands on with them and see how they are, how they act, in different situations, what's going on in training, if they're not performing well, how, in training, how are they handling that? What's their attitude every day walking into the club and, around and stuff like that. I think it's much easier to make a decision on that. But I sort of get what you mean, but I don't think we can just sort of blanket statement and say like, they're all compromised, toss them out, because I think there would always be a potential that we would be making a mistake on some individuals there, because they're not totally lost causes. They might have had a negative experience, but if we can change things around in the football club and, we're making changes. We've been making changes as it is since Ineos has come in, and obviously we're looking to gain more consistency and be a stronger team. I think, you know, if you could have positive impacts on them, I think you can still influence them and you know, sort of kind of erase that negative impact and overcome them with the positive impact and sort of move away from that and move to something else different. So, Lucky says, I'm with manager. We're buying Premier League players. How we made it. Yaya says as well, we can develop players when the standards are non-negotiable. Only then can we talk about a pathway from the academy to the first team. Well, that's kind of what I've been saying, and that's what I kind of think in terms of, like, not exactly, but I just view it as our first team and the players that we have. These are the experienced players. They struggle. Obviously, some of them aren't good enough still, and we need to change some more. The ones that we haven't changed, because we've changed some, but you know, we always have to continue to get better players, build better players. It's the part of football. It's a cycle. You know, when you break it down, it is sort of vicious. I mean, do you think that Arsenal, for example, when Arteta had his third season and he changed a lot of players from the first two seasons in the third season, do you think Arteta was then just like, no, we're happy with the entire squad I have and I don't need to buy any more players? No, like they still did well in that third season. They still went into the summer window. They still bought new players and still got rid of other players. They still did it again, you know, the season after that, and they still did it again this last summer window. You always have to do it. So, you know, talking about we changed a lot of players, doesn't matter. You always in football, you always have to continue to change players. You have to continue going from level to level. Now, on how good of the change is depends on how many you actually have to make in terms of, at some point, you know, if you are up there challenging for the Prem and you are a serious contender, you don't have to go and change 8 players. You might have to change only 2 or 3. Our circumstance, obviously, the way I view it is, you know, they've sort of bring in maybe almost about a starting 11. I'm a little bit lost on the exact numbers. Dorgu Delit, Xerxes, Mbuemo, Cunha, Lemons, Mazawari. Did they get Mason Mount in? Mason Mount. Somewhere around there. I'm missing some off the top of my head. But about almost a starting 11. That still leaves in the club on paper. And maybe some of them you wouldn't get rid of, but on paper, it still leaves another 11 players at the football club. Another, you know, we have a total of 22. If we go into the Champions League, we need about 24, 25. Minimum, it still leaves another 11 players. Now, in those 11 players that, you know, we bring in the starting 11, you would go into another 11. Maybe you don't change all 11. Maybe you get like another 7 out of them. And then we still have to continue to be going on that because, as we've seen, like, you know, maybe Dorgu doesn't work out. Maybe Dorgu was a bad buy. Maybe Xerxes wasn't the best buy for us, and we got that wrong. We're going to have to move them on. We're going to have to get in new guys. This is part of football. I mean, but I think once we actually have, like, if we can actually get to a place where we are more consistent on a better terms, then we can actually start to introduce youth. This is why I look towards sort of Arsenal's project. Like I always hear many times, like, look at Arteta, he's using youth. Why can't we do the same? And I'm just like, but if you want to use Arteta as a comparison and you want to use Arsenal as a comparison, then you can't just compare just him bringing in youth. You have to look at the project as a whole and how it transformed and how it developed. Did Arteta use and bring in a bunch of youngsters in the first 1 to 2 years that he went in there? He did not. Did he solely rely on them? He did not. He sold players that were problems. They got rid of players. They got in new players. Gabriel, you know, Saliba, amongst others. They got Zubamendi. And, like, you know, these are like very good, already set, ready to go players. And they bring them into the squad. And then when you're in a Champions League match or you got an FA Cup match, you know, you can bring 3 kids onto the bench. The first team does their job. They score 2-3 goals. You throw in the kids, or maybe you start one of them because you know that your players on the pitch are going to be able to help that kid if he struggles, and, you know, it's a better place for him to perform. So, we should use the kids with the balance. It's in our DNA. And I agree, and I think we can, but I think this season we cannot, unfortunately. And I just think that is an unfortunate repercussion that we have to suffer because of last season. So, because we couldn't go out there and do a job. So I think we can use them in a balance. I think if you look at our first team and you look at our season and like, you know, what we have going on, I don't think it's very balanced. I don't think the environment in the first team is very balanced right now in terms of it could be way more balanced, and we don't have balance in terms of giving them opportunities for games. So it's very unbalanced right now. To use them in balance, we need things to be more balanced. So we're going to have to get there. So I think it's a bit of a longer term type of thing. I don't think anyone is trying to rely on them, but only playing 4 to 10 minutes is wild. Yeah, but 4 to 10 minutes for who though? Like, because you might be talking about it in a different way, Andresito. Like, I'm seeing people talking about using Cheeto Obi, and you know, some people, if they had their way, they'd start Cheeto Obi and they'd play him 90 minutes, and I think that's fucking insane because he's clearly not ready. If you're talking about somebody like Kobbie, it's a bit different because he's 20 and he already, like, you know, sort of broke through, so it's different. But I think, again, right now, like, and as we talked about it, I think they probably already knew that, like, they weren't going to be able to get a lot of game time. They held them here because they didn't want to be short on players. And we have AFCON. And if you let Ugarte, Mainoo, and these guys go on loan, and you have AFCON, and we have injuries, our squad is fucked in the middle of the season. And we can't afford the squad to be fucked. Ruben can't afford the squad to be fucked. And Ineos can't afford the squad to be fucked because we need to have a good season and get back into Europe. Otherwise, the whole shit is out the window. Like, and this is sort of the whole thing. Like, whether you like Ruben or not, he needs to succeed, because if he fails, the project is fucked. And if the project is fucked, United are fucked. And you think that things are going to get better, like, that's not necessarily going to happen. We're going to have to go through another period, and it's going to take even longer, and it's going to set us back even further. So actually, if you actually truly care about United, you would put sort of some of your differences aside in terms of the manager and the ownership, and you would hope that they actually succeed, because our club actually goes into a better position. Whereas if they both fail, our club goes into a worse position. We're going to go down. It's going to take longer for us to get back to where we want to be, and we're going to be screwed. Look, you keep mentioning Arteta as an example, yet he has won nothing. Please. Because my example of Arteta is not about winning things, dude. I don't understand. I don't think I've ever once said, look at Arteta, this is how you win things. I didn't say that. We're talking about squad building. We're talking about taking a team, a club, from a place where you don't challenge, and you are not in major competitions, and you are inconsistent, and you are not serious. We're talking about taking a club from that position to a club that actually challenges and can actually be in the conversation and is actually serious for the full season. Him not winning anything has nothing to do with the conversation I'm talking about. It has absolutely nothing. That is a totally separate, different conversation. I'm talking about, look what Arsenal was when he walked in, and look where Arsenal are now. And if you say that they are the same, then I don't know what to tell you, because they are quite clearly not. Arsenal were a fucking complete joke when he took over. And it took 3 seasons for them to become not a joke. And after he did very well in the 3rd season, this is his 6th season. So that means for 3 seasons straight, they have been team to challenge for the Premier League. They are in the Champions League. They go into the semi-finals of Champions Leagues. Compare that to us and where we are. We are nowhere near that. What I would like is for us to build to that. When we get to where Arsenal is, we have a different conversation about, now it's time to get over the line and win things. Now it's time that we actually make the push. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So Yes, I keep talking about Arteta because Arteta, the way I view a proper way to build the club and the project is exactly what they did. They have the blueprint for it. We don't have to reinvent the sun or the wheel. We can literally just copy to a certain extent what they did. It's clear as day. They literally just did it. They literally just did it. It's quite clear. Go into the club, clear this shit out, bring in players that fit the system for the manager, players that can be here at the club, that can handle the club, and build it out. And they gave him time as well. Finished 8th twice. Third season came around for them. Fox says Bournemouth 0, Everton 1. Oh my god. I can't believe that. The Premier League is crazy, man. Like, Everton at home take the piss to Newcastle, get slaughtered, and then Bournemouth is at home, and I think Bournemouth is a better team than Everton, and now Everton are gonna win 1-0 away from home at Bournemouth. Fulham and City are at 4-5. This is insane. That's crazy. And Newcastle and Tottenham are 0-0 right now. I will never put aside my differences about United. I want a revolution. I mean, you're just crazy. I want full change of fan ownership. Actually, never getting these things. I hope you know that. Like, it's never happening. We're never getting a revolution. The Premier League would never allow it. You're never getting fan ownership because the Premier League would never allow it. For that to happen, you got to go back to like the 1960s or some shit, my guy. Like, there's no revolution. Nobody's revolting. It's never happening. It's literally never happening. They would never. You would never gain control. You would never get the power. It will never happen. It will never happen. Nobody's doing it. Nobody's doing it. There's no revolution. This isn't some geopolitical standpoint. I don't know where you get this idea of a revolution. It's not happening. It's not happening. This isn't like some small Asian country or whatever that place was where all the kids overthrew the government because they told them they can't use the internet. Like, that shit's never happening. You like this is where you completely lose me. It's never happening. It's never happening. 8 minutes of added time, Fulham 4-5. The Axe Revolution. Yes, maybe when they put people in the pods and they hook you up and you go into a virtual reality and you live the rest of your life there and they make you eat the bugs through a tube. Maybe that's where he can have his revolution. But in real life, no, there's no revolution ever coming. There's no revolution ever coming. The only thing that will ever happen is if the Glazers decide to actually fully sell this football club. And that's not a revolution. That is the Glazers saying, bye-bye, we are done, and giving it to somebody who has a lot more money than anybody probably will ever have in their lifetime, and they will own the football club. The fans will not own the football club, and that's just the end of the story. It's totally done. The Premier League and Premier League clubs will never be owned by fans, no matter how much you want it to happen. And I don't even do this, but I will tell you there is a 0% chance of that ever happening. Because for that to happen, all of entire society has to collapse and all the money has to equal to zero and shit has to go completely to the ground. And when that happens, the world is over and there's no more football. So, I'm not following you and you're not changing anything. I don't want to be part of any revolution. I am not I'm not a Marxist. I'm not a communist or whatever, because that's who does revolutions, is communists. And this is football. This shit's not happening. There's no club that has a revolution. And especially our football club. There's no club that has a revolution. Yes, when you get the movement acts, let me know. Maybe then I'll join. But I won't waste my time now. Anyway, I'm getting out of here because now we're talking nonsense and it's been 2 hours and I gotta get out of here anyway because I gotta go do things. Tomorrow we will be back live and I'm going live earlier. I wanted to go live earlier because when I said 7:30 UK, When I said 7:30, the first time I didn't realize that there was matches at that time. And then I realized after, so I was going to start the show about a half hour early today, and I didn't because I had problems with the thumbnail. And so tomorrow, tomorrow 6:45 p.m. UK time, we'll be going live. So we get ahead of the matches. We can all watch. I can watch the matches because I wanted to watch them, and I didn't watch them. Yeah, so we'll be going live 1:45 p.m. UK time. Be there, be square, or don't be there. Yeah, thank you to everybody for being involved. Shout out to you guys. Thank you for smashing the like button. Hit the like button on the way out if you didn't. Greatly appreciate it. But shout out to all the people that got involved in the chat today. Shared thoughts and opinions and carrying the show and stuff like that. We greatly appreciate you. And we'll see each other tomorrow. Be good. Have a good night. Thank you for the stream, says Axe. Yep, thank you for being here. And when you actually give good opinions. not nonsense, but we appreciate it anyway. You are always here, so I can't fault you for. You are always here. But yeah, shout out to everybody. Thank you. Everybody have a good night, and we'll see each other tomorrow.